Equality. In this essay, we will be learning about equality, its meaning, its three dimensions, and their significance in society. Understanding equality. In its prescriptive usage, equality is a loaded and highly contested concept. On account of its normally positive connotation, it has a rhetorical power rendering it suitable as a popular political slogan. At least since the French Revolution, equality has served as one of the leading ideals of the body politic. Equality is not always about treating everyone the same. It is about treating people in such a way that the outcome for each person can be the same. This means putting things in place to support people to achieve similar outcomes. For a person who is blind, it may involve having screen readers on your computers and removing obstacles in your building. For someone from a minority background, it may involve having affirming messages in your youth space so that young people know that diversity and difference is valued. Equality of outcome can be achieved by making sure that everyone is supported to have access to resources and decision making and to be recognized, valued, and respected. When supports are not put in place, it usually results in exclusion even if this is not intended. Equality is important as it ensures that every individual has an equal opportunity to make the most of their lives and talents, and believing that no one should have poorer life chances because of where, what, or whom they were born, what they believe, or whether they have a disability. Equality recognizes that historically certain groups of people with particular characteristics, that is race, disability, sex, and sexuality, have experienced discrimination. Where does equality come from? The development of Britain's anti-discrimination laws took place around the 1970s, aiming to tackle unfair discrimination towards some groups of people in education, employment, and the provision of services. For example, the Sex Discrimination Act was introduced in 1975 to stop discrimination due to a person's sex. Sex discrimination frequently occurred in the past, particularly in the workplace and specifically towards women. This is one of the many anti-discrimination laws that were introduced to protect people with particular characteristics. For example, the Equal Pay Act of 1970, the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975, the Race Relations Act of 1976, the Disability Discrimination Act of 1995, the Employment Equality of Religion and Belief Regulations of 2003, the Employment Equality of Sexual Orientation Regulations 2003, the Employment Equality of Age Regulations 2006, the Equality Act of Sexual Orientation Regulations of 2007. The Equality Act of 2010 was brought in to consolidate and harmonize all previous acts relating to protected characteristics. All the acts mentioned above have been repealed by the Equality Act of 2010. In the preamble to the Indian Constitution, the term equality pledges to secure to all citizens of India equality of status and opportunity. This provision embraces three dimensions of equality: civic, political, and economic. Let's understand equality today. We have made huge progress towards a more equal society. Today, the vast majority of us are happy studying, working, and making friends with people from other ethnic minorities. Some outdated stereotypes about women have begun to fade. Minority ethnic groups which used to lag far behind in educational performance have begun to catch up. And there have been huge changes in attitudes towards lesbians, gays, and bisexual people. What do you understand by equality of opportunity? The concept of equality implies that all people as human beings are entitled to the same rights and opportunities to develop their skills and talents and to pursue their goals and ambitions. This means that in a society people may differ with regard to their choices and preferences. It is not the lack of equality of status or wealth or privilege that is significant, but the inequalities in people's access to such basic goods as education, healthcare, safe housing that make for an unequal and unjust society. In contrast, when equality of opportunity prevails, the assignment of individuals to places in the social hierarchy is determined by some form of competitive process, and all members of society are eligible to compete on equal terms. Different conceptions of equality of opportunity construe this idea of competing on equal terms variously. Let's now find out what is social inequality. Social inequality occurs when resources in a given society are distributed unevenly. typically through norms of allocation that engender specific patterns along lines of socially defined categories of persons. Economic inequality, usually described on the basis of the unequal distribution of income or wealth, is a frequently studied type of social inequality. However, social and natural resources other than purely economic resources are also unevenly distributed in most societies and may contribute to social status. Norms of allocation can also affect the distribution of rights and privileges, social power, access to public goods such as education or the judicial system, adequate housing, transportation, credit and financial services such as banking and other social goods and services. While many societies worldwide hold that their resources are distributed on the basis of merit, research shows that the distribution of resources often follows delineations that distinguish different social categories of persons on the basis of other socially defined characteristics. For example, social inequality is linked to racial inequality, gender inequality, and ethnic inequality, as well as other status characteristics. What are the three dimensions of equality? In democratic societies, political equality would normally include granting equal citizenship to all the members of the state. Equal citizenship brings with it certain basic rights such as the right to vote, freedom of expression, movement and association, and freedom of belief. These are rights which are considered necessary to enable citizens to develop themselves and participate in the affairs of the state. But they are legal rights guaranteed by the Constitution and the laws. We know that considerable inequality can exist even in countries which grant equal rights to all citizens. For this reason, a demand is often made for equal opportunities or for a level playing field. But we should remember that all the political and legal equality by itself may not be sufficient to build a just and egalitarian society. It is certainly an important component of it. 1. Political equality. According to Jarrett B. Waldstein, in The Free Man, political equality refers to the equality of each citizen's individual rights and liberty. It means granting equal citizenship to all members of the state and also to ensure conditions that allow the citizens to participate in the affairs of the state. Political equality brings along with it certain rights such as right to vote, right to contest elections, right to criticize the government, etc. Political equality is based on the idea of universal adult franchise. In India, political equality is sought to be achieved by Article 325 that declares that a person is to be declared ineligible for inclusion in electoral rolls on the grounds of religion, race, caste or sex. Article 326, which says elections to the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies to be on the basis of adult suffrage. We know that considerable inequality can exist even in countries which grant equal rights to all citizens. These inequalities are often the result of differences in the resources and opportunities which are available to citizens in the social and economic spheres. For this reason, a demand is often made for equal opportunities or for a level playing field. But we should remember that although political and legal equality by itself may not be sufficient to build a just and egalitarian society, it is certainly an important component of it. 2. Social equality. Social equality is a state of affairs in which all people within a specific society or isolated group have the same status in certain respects. At the very least, social equality includes equal rights under the law, such as security, voting rights, freedom of speech and assembly, property rights, and equal access to social goods and services. However, it also includes concepts of health equity, economic equality, and other social securities. It also includes equal opportunities and obligations, and so involves the whole of society. Social equality requires the absence of legally enforced social class or caste boundaries and the absence of discrimination motivated by an inalienable part of a person's identity. For example, sex, gender, race, age, sexual orientation, origin, caste or class, income or property, language, religion, convictions, opinions, health or disability must not result in unequal treatment under the law and should not reduce opportunities unjustifiably. In India, the lack of opportunities has led to unequal distribution of income in society. Poverty is especially pronounced among the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and among agricultural laborers. There is also a growing class of urban poor, economic refugees, seeking an income in the society and finding themselves with no job or housing. Inequalities in India are not only very widespread, they are also very visible, with beggars living on the pavements outside luxury hotels. Also, a special problem regarding equal opportunities comes not just from a lack of facility, but also from the customs which may prevail in different parts of the country or among different groups. A woman, for instance, may not enjoy equal rights of inheritance in some groups, or there may be social prohibitions regarding their taking part in certain kinds of activities, or they may even be discouraged from going in for higher education. In such cases, the role of the state has been to offer equal legal rights to all. Social groups and individuals also have a role to play in raising awareness and supporting those who want to exercise their rights. Over time, such inequalities can give rise to resentment and violence. Because of the power of the wealthy classes, it might prove difficult to reform such a society to make it more open and egalitarian. Our Constitution under fundamental rights ensures civic equality through the following provisions. Equality before the law, that is Article 14. Prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth, that is Article 15. Equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, that is Article 16. Abolition of untouchability, that is Article 17. Abolition of titles, that is Article 18. Economic equality. Equity or economic equality is the concept or idea of fairness in economics, particularly in regard to taxation or welfare economics. More specifically, it may refer to equal life chances regardless of identity, to provide all citizens with a basic and equal minimum of income, goods and services, or to increase funds and commitment for redistribution. One way of measuring the degree of economic inequality in a society would be to measure the relative difference between the richest and the poorest groups. Another way could be to estimate the number of people who live below the poverty line. The state often plays a central role in the necessary redistribution required for equity between all citizens, but applying this in practice is highly complex and involves contentious issues. However, considerable consensus can often be found on three particular issues. Equal life chances, that is, life outcomes should be determined by individual choices and not conditions beyond an individual's control. Equal concern for people's needs, that is, those goods and services understood as necessities should be distributed to those otherwise unable to access them. And lastly, meritocracy. Positions in society and rewards should reflect differences in effort and ability based on fair competition. Economic equality is secured by the directive principles of state policy through Article 39, which secures to men and women equal right to an adequate means of livelihood and equal pay for equal work. Key notes to remember in this essay are: equality is not always about treating everyone the same. It is about treating people in such a way that the outcome for each person can be the same. Equality of outcome can be achieved by making sure that everyone is supported to have access to resources and decision making and to be recognized, valued and respected. The development of Britain's anti-discrimination laws took place around the 1970s. In the preamble to the Indian Constitution, the term equality pledges to secure to all citizens of India equality of status and opportunity. Social inequality occurs when resources in a given society are distributed unevenly, typically through norms of allocation that engender specific patterns along lines of socially defined categories of persons. Political equality refers to the equality of each citizen's individual rights and liberty, means granting equal citizenship to all members of the state, and also to ensure conditions that allow the citizens to participate in the affairs of the state. Social equality is a state of affairs in which all people within a specific society or isolated group have the same status in certain respects. Social equality requires the absence of legally enforced social class or caste boundaries and the absence of discrimination motivated by an inalienable part of a person's identity. In India, the lack of equal opportunity has led to unequal distribution of income among the society. Equity or economic equality is the concept or idea of fairness in economics, particularly in regard to taxation or welfare economics. One way of measuring the degree of economic inequality in a society would be to measure the relative difference between the richest and the poorest groups. Economic equality is secured by the directive principles of state policy through Article 39.